And many wondering this season how Dabo Swinney and the Tigers are going to handle the loss of longtime defensive coordinator Brent Venables, who left for Oklahoma. Clemson started last season in the top 5 as well, but they started 4-3 because DJ Uiagalelei really struggled in his first season as a starter. They did win their last 6 to reach the 10-win mark. That game tonight in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, home of the Falcons. We bring in Brady Quinn to break down not just this game, but Clemson as a whole moving forward, because, Brady, they are a team that is a college football playoff contender once again in the ACC. What do you expect to see from Dabo replacing his longtime confidant?
Well, that's the tough part. You know, Brent Venables had been with Dabo Swinney for 10 years. In those 10 years, they ranked in the top 10 in all of college football in scoring defense. So you can make the case that's been part of the consistency and the foundation that Dabo Swinney has built. And, you know, Dabo, he likes to hire from within and bring guys up. And that's exactly what he's done here with Wes Goodwin, who takes over. And an interesting story, you know, Goodwin, only 37 years old, he actually got to start coaching in baseball with Ron Polk at Mississippi State. And now he's entrusted with trying to bring Clemson back to the high standard that Brent Venables left behind. So some big shoes to fill. But look, this is a talented defense. I think sometimes defensive coordinators have the tendency, when they've got talented players, to almost do too much with them. Hopefully that's not going to be the case here, where I think Goodwin will be able to put these guys in positions just to go win and find ways of putting them in one-on-one matchups, in particular that talented defensive front for Clemson. So, look, I think he's fit for the job. I don't think Dabo Swinney would have tapped him as the heir apparent to Brent Venables if he wasn't. And
bottom line is, defense was not an issue last season. It was the offense. And the biggest question is going to be, who is DJ Uiagalelei going to be this season? Is last season going to prove to be the outlier, or was he overrated coming out of high school? What do you see this season?
Well, look, he wasn't overrated. I mean, you don't put together a performance like he did in his first start in South Bend versus Notre Dame, you know, a couple years ago now, and not come away very impressed with this young man. He's got a big arm. He's big. He's a physical player when he takes off and runs. And you see the fact that he can make all the throws. To me, it's just a matter of processing. It's him continuing to develop as a quarterback and how he sees the game, how he reads defenses. I think at times he's got bad pocket awareness that I think he has a hard time working through his progressions. But guess what? He's not alone. You see that all the time in college football. And he's got the athleticism and skill set to overcome some of that. So I know last year looked ugly at times in the passing game. I'm expecting him to take another step, because he has to. If he doesn't, Cade Klubnik's in. You know, they didn't have the luxury or ability to put in someone behind him that they felt like was capable to take over mid-starter. They do, and you know, former 5-star recruit Cade Klubnik right behind him. So he doesn't have another option at this point in time. If there is going to be a switch, it's not going to be in this game. Even though Georgia Tech was able to get Clemson's number last year, that was earlier in the season. You know, they really started to find their flow and get back to a rushing attack with Will Shipley at running back, and not put so much on DJ Uiagalelei's shoulders. So I think that's going to be where the base of this offense really is. Not so much, you know, centered around the quarterback position carrying this team, but a rushing attack, some of the RPO, some play action off of that to take some pressure off the quarterback.
Can't imagine tonight is going to be much of a test for Clemson, but they have 4 ranked teams on the schedule this season. They go on the road to Notre Dame. The win total is 10.5, juiced to the under. What do you think?
Yeah, I would probably take the under. It's a tough schedule. You know, you mentioned the matchup versus Notre Dame, and I know they lost versus Ohio State, but you know, I think they're pretty much able to play with anyone. And again, they've got to go to South Bend for that one, so that's a tough matchup. You know, NC State didn't look very good. You know, that's a team that I think that matchup looks tougher than it might be by the time we get there. Although you'd have to say going to Tallahassee to play Florida State doesn't look as easy anymore either. I've got Miami beating Clemson. So with a loss in South Bend, a loss in Miami, there right there you hit the under. So I think 10 wins is very possible for this team. But I think it's a tough schedule to run through. And I think Clemson's going to have a hard time this year, especially if they can't figure out how to make DJ Uiagalelei the quarterback that they're hoping is going to be. Even if Cade Klubnik takes over, there could be a bit of a struggle there in that transition.
Yeah, only one loss to play with. I mean, if you have them losing that game at Notre Dame, got to win the rest of them to hit that over. So you think they're not only going to lose at Notre Dame, most likely, they're going to lose to Miami. Miami, decent value in the ACC if you're a believer there. They're plus 450. With Clemson, you got to put down $140 just to get back 100.
Yeah, that's why I like Miami to actually win the ACC, in part because the value you're talking about as far as betting standards go, but also because I think they've got a better quarterback in Tyler Van Dyke. Now, look, I'm not going to take much away from Bethune-Cookman and that huge victory, but I'm more of a believer in Mario Cristobal and where he's taking that talent, where they're going. Their offensive line's going to be drastically improved. They've got the skilled players and the talent and speed to make this happen. So I think you could see more parity in the ACC, which, to be quite honest with you, is a good thing. You know, NC State's another team I think might be a sleeper in this conference. We obviously saw Pitt and how they looked versus West Virginia in a tough-fought battle in week 1. So there's a lot of other teams that I think are coming along. But, you know, right now I think it's still Clemson and then, you know, Miami. But I think it's Miami's year to surprise them and pull off the upset.
Clemson starting with a conference game tonight against Georgia Tech, 24-point favorite. So get your pick in just a second. But how do we bring last season's game into the fold here? Or should we even bring that into the fold? It was Georgia Tech team that couldn't do anything offensively, but they did a really good job against Clemson, limiting them to 14 points. Still lost the game, but can they do the same tonight?
No. I mean, again, we can look back to last year all we want. A lot of these rosters have changed, and I think, you know, Clemson has found the rhythm really in highlighting Will Shipley in their offense and basing everything off that. So that really happened the last 5 games. You looked at how Clemson finished the season. Offensively, they started to put it together and figure it out. So that's what I suspect is going to happen in this one. I just don't think Georgia Tech has the firepower on offense to compete. It's obviously incredibly difficult when the best player on your offense leaves to go to Alabama through the transfer portal in the offseason, and that's just where Georgia Tech's at. So, I mean, look, this line was 21 points when I originally picked it and laid the points with Clemson about a week ago. It's a little tougher now with 2.5 more points on top of this because now you're talking about, more than 3 scores. And really, that's a number they're going to have to cover. But I think they're still capable of it. I don't feel as good about the 21 points earlier, but I'll lay the 23.5 at this point in time. And I do think this is a game that Clemson puts up a pretty big number versus Georgia Tech. You'll see some scores from Georgia Tech, but not that much to make this one competitive. Okay,
so you like Clemson at 23.5, 24, but you already got them at 21 last week, so you're feeling good about that. The over-under is interesting. Why do you think Georgia Tech is going to be able to put up some points here and we're going to go over the total of 51?
Garbage time. You know, I think at this point, when you look at Clemson, they'll probably have their starters out by the 4th quarter at some point. I think you'll see Georgia Tech be able to get a few scores there. It's not like Jeff Sims isn't a talented athlete and capable of doing so. And as we've seen so far in week 1, one of the biggest issues you'll see in every single game, we saw last night with LSU and Florida State, tackling. Yeah, it's a concept there in football. There's no preseason games. You know, there's no practice where you're taking guys to the ground. So you're going to see some mistakes. You're going to see penalties. You're going to see sloppy plays, and you're going to see some missed tackles. So I think that goes for both teams. And that's where, you know, to me at least, it's a little more likely that you see that overhit just with some of the offensive play, you know, being able to make something out of nothing. Sometimes we see early on in the season.
Closing the book on week 1 tonight with Clemson, a heavy favorite against Georgia Tech in Atlanta inside the Dome. Brady Quinn giving us his picks and his outlook for the Clemson Tigers this season. Likes Miami to win the ACC and says Clemson under 10.5 wins. Cover 3 podcast, new episode today, recapping Florida State's epic win against LSU and posing the question, should Georgia not only jump Ohio State, but Alabama as well? Speaking of Alabama, big-time marquee matchup that Brady is going to be on hand for. At Texas, Alabama is nearly a full 3-touchdown favorite in that game. We are going to have picks against the spread for every ranked game tomorrow afternoon with Brady Quinn and Danny Cannell.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.